Okay, so yesterday we started reading all about frogs. What were some things that we learned yesterday? Let me look back in the book to see. Oh, right, we learned that frogs shed their skin when they grow, and they actually eat their old skin when they're done. And we learned that different parts of frogs' bodies keep them away from predators or harmful animals that eat them. Okay, let's continue reading. Quick! A frog needs to get away. It jumps on its strong back legs. It can leap more than 20 times its own length. When it reaches water, it dives in. The frog swims fast. It uses its webbed feet to push itself through the water. Webbed toes push away more water than toes alone do. All right, we read this page yesterday. You're right. Hold on a second. We also read this page. Here's our new page. Okay. Tadpole to frog. Most frogs hatch from eggs in water. A frog lives the first part of its life as a tadpole. It then goes through a change called metamorphosis. It turns into an adult frog. An adult frog spends the rest of its life on land and in water. So let's see. Day 1, an adult frog lays eggs. Day 30, an egg hatches into a tadpole. Frog eggs laid in jelly are called frog spawn. At 8 weeks old, the tadpole grows bigger. At 12 weeks old, the front and the back legs begin to grow. At 14 weeks old, the long tail starts to get smaller. At 16 weeks old, the froglet climbs out into the water. And an adult frog, the fully grown frog, can now live on land and on water. Here's a new vocabulary word in bold. Metamorphosis. After metamorphosis, a frog looks very different. Metamorphosis means to change, right? So the animals that go through a metamorphosis change. So a caterpillar goes through a metamorphosis and becomes a butterfly, right? Butterflies, bees, ladybugs, and crabs also go through a metamorphosis. So if you're somebody who's writing an information book or an all-about book in writing, maybe you want to include like a diagram or a list where they have words in bold like that. It's a dangerous world for frogs, eggs, and tadpoles. They may be eaten or washed away. The midwife toad keeps its eggs safe on its back. Then it takes them to water to hatch into tadpoles. Midwife toad. Glass frog. The glass frog lays its eggs under a branch hanging over a river. The male guards the eggs. When they hatch, the tadpoles drop into the water. Tadpoles are kept in here. Darwin's frogs keep tadpoles safe in their throats. Sky blue poison frogs carry their tadpoles on their backs. Look out for frogs. Frogs live almost all over the world. So I'm thinking that this page is going to tell me where frogs live. They do not live in Antarctica. Frogs have ways of living in tough places. In the desert, frogs rest in the ground for months. They wake up when the rains come. In the Arctic winter, the wood frog freezes like a piece of ice. It warms up again in the spring. So North America. The poison dart frog lives in the rainforest. That's South America, where the poison dart frog lives. The desert rain frog lives by the sea. It stays wet from sea fog. The bullfrog lives in swamps and ponds. In Europe, the agile frog is a great color for hiding in forests. In Asia, in Australia, the corroboree frog lives in the mountains. The Wallace's flying frog lives in the rainforest. It glides from tree to tree. This frog looks like it's flying with wings. I think it's called the flying frog because it looks like it's flying when it jumps from tree to tree. More than 1,000 species of frog live in the Amazon rainforest. Some never touch the ground. A lot of rain falls through the leaves and keeps the frogs wet. They lay eggs in pools of water in large leaves. Rainforest frogs come in lots of different colors. This is the Rio Chingual Valley tree frog. Species are animals that have babies together. That's what species mean. So this is interesting. We learned earlier that frogs need to be wet for part of their lives, and they spend some of their time in the water and some of their time on land. But this frog in the rainforest never needs to leave the tree. It never needs to go in the ground and in the water because there's so much rain falling that the rain can keep the frog wet. Frogs in trouble. There are millions of frogs in the wild. About 1,900 species are in danger of becoming extinct. There are three main reasons. Rainforests are being cut down. Humans have poisoned rivers with waste, and many frogs are dying from a disease. Fewer trees. The peat swamp frog is losing its home. Many trees have been cut down in the rainforest where it lives. Poisoned rivers. The Lamosa harlequin frog is being poisoned. Humans have harmed its river with waste. Hold on a second. Sick frogs. There are no more gastric brooding frogs. They all died from a disease. Here's a new word, extinct. A kind of animal is extinct if no more of those animals are still living. So dinosaurs are extinct because they're no longer living. They're saying that this kind of frog, the gastric brooding frog, has become extinct too. Many people are working to save frogs. One team in Sri Lanka builds paths for frogs. People make ponds in different parts of the rainforest. Then they make paths between the ponds. The frogs use the paths to move to new, safer areas. These frogs are all Sri Lankan shrub frogs. It's so important when I read information books that I read all the words on the page. I'm reading the big paragraphs, I'm reading the small captions. All of the writing, I'm looking at it. Charit Senanyaki works to help frogs in the rainforest of Sri Lanka. Frogs can tell us about the health of the rainforest plants and animals. Frogs don't often like to live in polluted areas. So lots of healthy frogs equals a healthy forest. And here's a map. That's where Sri Lanka is. Record-breaking frogs. There are almost 6,000 species of frog. Check out 10 of the coolest. Number 1, the deadliest frog. Some people use the poison from poison dart frogs for hunting. Number 2, weirdest frog. The Suriname toad has a very flat body. Number 3, the Goliath frog can grow to be more than 1 foot long. Wow, a ruler is a foot long. They're saying this frog could be as big as a ruler. That's a big frog. Number 4, the smallest frog. A 0.2 of an inch long frog has been found. That's really tiny. They're showing a picture of a dime here. So I'm thinking that that tiny frog is about the size of a dime. Number 5, best at disappearing. Glass frogs have see-through skin. Number 6, the bumpiest skin. The Vietnamese mossy frog is covered in lumps and bumps. It looks just like a handful of moss. Number 7, noisiest tadpoles. The tadpoles of the ornate horned frog are the only tadpoles that we know of that make sounds. Number 8, the best jumper. The red-eyed tree frog can jump 150 times its body length. Number 9, rainiest frogs. In 2005, some frogs got sucked into the air during a storm. Then they rained back down. Could you imagine walking down the street and it raining frogs on you? Number 10, the loudest frog. The male coqui has a noisy squeak that is as loud as a chainsaw. Ooh, there's a comparison. It's as loud as a chainsaw. Chainsaws are loud. They're those really loud power tools that people use to saw things and build things. I can picture that this frog must be really loud. At the back of the book, there's a glossary. In case you didn't know what words meant, you can look them up there. And there's also an index where you can see certain pages in the book. Like if you really want to learn more about camouflage, you can go to page 13. And if you want to learn more about the rainforest, the author talked about the rainforest on lots of pages. On page 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, and 26. So you can go back and see. That was our book of frogs. See you tomorrow, everybody.